Hello, hello. This is Laura V from Laura V Studios here with Being Divine. So today is Thursday, September 5th, 2024. And here's my thoughts for today. Well, it's interesting because, like I said, on September 1st, I had this feeling that something had shifted. And then my guide said, ask to be shifted to your highest timeline that serves highest good. I'm like, okay. So I did. And then the next day, things didn't feel so great. Then the next day, they asked me to do it again. So I'm like, okay. And I could feel something shift. And then yesterday was better, better than 2 days before, but still it was like a low day. And here I am today, and it's a little bit higher. And the interesting thing is, I'm a subscriber to Medium. And on my feed that I get every day was someone saying, here's 3 signs that you've shifted to a higher timeline. I'm like, my higher self. Like, yay. Yesterday I had a conversation with my higher self, and it got kind of confusing because I was like, I can't really call her my higher self anymore because she's more like my conscious self, just conscious of everything. And I was like, huh, that's interesting. And then I read another article this morning from somebody who talked about that a little bit. And I was like, hmm. So, so where am I at today? Because this is a process. What I did learn yesterday is, and I've known this about myself since I was little, is I've always been seeking the truth. Truth has been really important to me. Not what's true, but what's real. Because Mrs. Eddy said, truth, what's true is what is real. I'm like, that makes sense. And I'm not talking about this human experience. I've never really put a lot of faith or thought or anything into, I mean, thought, yeah, but not a lot of faith into this human experience because I'm just like, I know what's real and true is God and me. God and me. We're like this. And this human experience just hasn't made a whole lot of sense to me. And it's been like not fun a lot of the time. So I'm just like, eh. I'm learning to appreciate the human experience a lot better, which is a good thing. So I thought what I'd do would be answer some questions. I know I'm not following the rule of, give them the thing in the first 3 seconds or they leave. Um, but if you've stuck around this long, here's the answers to some questions. So here's some questions I came up with this morning because what's important to me is my spiritual growth. That's like always been the most important thing to me is basically getting back to what I knew was true in the first place. And now that I've, been on this spiritual path with psychics and mediums, like a lot of this stuff is making more sense than it has before. I'm like, huh, okay, that makes sense. So like the whole idea is um knowing what's spiritually true. Like that's the most important thing to me. And having a strong working relationship with my higher self and God and whatever. I've decided like God is very much real to me. Like, yes, God is the source of everything. Yes. Do I have guides? Yes. Um, do I work with angels? The archangels in particular? Yes, they have made their presence known to me. They did it in a really big way once. Because, a lot of people get signs, and I never get physical signs. I'm like, well, do you really exist? And I'll ask them that once in a while, like, are you real? Because sometimes I wonder. But there was one time when my sister was going through something and I really wanted to help her and I was just feeling helpless to help her. And I was led to this YouTube video that was made by a shaman who called in the four directions, the four eight archangels in the four directions, Raphael in the east, Michael in the south, Gabriel in the west, Uriel in the north. And I listened to it, and when and I didn't realize she said something beyond that, because after she called them all in, there was like this blinding light, and then I could just really feel their presence really strongly, and they're like, "We need your help to help your sister." I was like, "Oh, okay." It was funny. So, I had a very strong experience with that day. So I was like, maybe they are real. So, but the human, I guess the thing about the human is it makes us so blind to what's spiritually real. It's like I think what I've always known is that the human isn't really real. It feels really real. The suffering, the pain, the joy feels really although honestly, here's the thing that gets me. Maybe it's not the human. Well, because the whole idea about the human is that there's evil and there's good. And to me, joy is real. Love is real. Truth is real. Like suffering and fear and those other things just aren't real. They can feel very real, especially when you're in pain, especially when you're not feeling well, especially when you just feel like garbage. It feels very real. But even so, I always turn to love when I'm not feeling well. I think it's because my mom, but she just would pick me up and love me, and that love would heal me. And so that's what I got used to. But yeah, so I always turn to love. Like, no matter how bad things are, love has to be here. And there has to be a way to make things better. Because I am always convinced there is something better, something that's real and tangible and accessible. For the longest time, I was like, what good are you all when you're spirit and I'm material and you can't do anything for me? And that really hurt because when I was little, my grandma would tell me stories of healings she had. She was introduced to Christian Science when she was 18, and she stuck with it because it helped her. It made sense to her. It answered her most pressing questions, and it worked. She's like, hey, it works. I'm sticking with it. And that made sense. And so she would tell me about the healing she would have for herself and her two children. And I would just eat those stories up. I was like, this, because every time she told me one of those stories, it was proof that God is real, that God is here, and that God can do something, you know, can do something real and tangible to help. And that's what kept me going because life for me as a kid was not easy, not easy at all. And it helped. It helped to know that God was here and God was real and that I could count on God. And there were times where God was my only friend. I didn't have a lot of friends growing up. I lived a very lonely life. Um, yeah. And and then eventually, I was led to people who loved me and accepted me outside of my family. And I learned that I could be loved and accepted by others. That was really important. Um, and I just kept working at this, working at knowing what's real and just I had this desperate need to prove it. It's like it felt like everything around me was screaming at me that God isn't real and that the things that I believed with my whole heart were bullshit. The world just kept saying, no, 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 we're real. This is real. This is your reality. And you aren't escaping this. And I did a lot of escaping. um, a lot of escaping. And so things changed about 8 years ago. Well, yeah, things dramatically changed 8 years ago because my dad died. That changed everything, actually. Changed everything. Things happened before that that caused some conflict for me and made me question a lot of things. Heck, I was questioning my whole adult life, but then my daughter told me she could see and talk to spirits, and I was like, oh boy. And shortly thereafter, we met a psychic medium who's local to our area, which I had no idea he existed. And they had a group that met every other Monday. And I'm like, all right, we're going. And that became they became my new family. They became my new friends. They introduced me to a different way of looking at things that I had never considered before. And that opened this door very wide to this whole world out there, and learning about soul contracts and about mediumship and channeling. And it was this medium who said, "You channel." I'm like, "What?" It happened one day. Um, we were in a situation that he was present, and this is something that's always happened for me is um I would feel this love come up and then something would come out of my mouth that met that person's need exactly. And this happened in front of him, and the person I talked to left the room and he said, "Way to go with your channeling, Laura." I'm like, "What? What are you talking about? I didn't channel." It's like, "Oh, yes, you did." Like, what? So I've been doing stuff that without even knowing it my whole life. Like, what? So it really opened my eyes to some things. But yeah, and then this last year was a very powerful time for me. Um, I was introduced to a whole new way of healing that actually worked, which was amazing. And then I found that I was really good at using this particular method. And so I started helping people get into embodied awakening because I think embodied awakening is the coolest thing ever to be. I consider it to be critical. I consider it critical. And okay, here's one of the reasons why. Is I have had I think it's healed a lot. So that I'm probably more like um I'm more integrated than I've ever been, but still parts can come out because that's kind of an IFS thing. But I have had dissociative identity disorder, which means I split myself off a lot when I was a kid due to trauma. And so I had all these parts that were like making a lot of noise in my head and doing things with my body that I didn't like. It was not fun. And um and we started working and he started integrating these fragments of me. And I'm like, this isn't really happening. And it was really happening. Soul integration is real, people. It's crazy. And I started getting better, a lot better. And the thing he told me though was you have to stay in embodied awakening so that these parts don't take over. See, for me, it was literally critical. It was critical for my mental health and for my physical health to stay in embodied awakening as much as I possibly could because these parts would get triggered really easily and send me in a tailspin a lot. And it still happens. Although I think I cracked it today. We shall see. We shall see what the next few days bring. But I think I cracked it. So embodied awakening is so important. But then I learned something else. Not only is it important to like keep me safe, but the more you work at embodying your higher self, the more you become that. And this is what we're here to do. We are here to embody our divinity. We are here to ascend this human sense of self, to heal this belief of separation and be one with the rest of us, which is non-physical and potentially divine. I think I'm going with it. Only because I was led to a meditation that says, I am a divine being fully expressing in this incarnation, this divinity now. And it would like it boomed in my head. And so I'm like, okay, it must be booming in my head because it's my truth. Actually, that's the other thing I want to talk about today. I guess I'll do the questions on another video. Um, truth, truth. Truth is so important to me. Seeking the truth, knowing the truth, living the truth, wanting to know what is really true spiritually, and wanting to live that truth. I want to be me. I want to be all of me, and that includes my divinity. And in order to do that, I have to heal stuff that gets in the way and clear stuff that gets in the way. And it's about it's about embodying a consciousness. Mm, We are consciousness, actually. When it comes to the end of the day, what it all comes down to is we are consciousness. And it's a matter of what conscious choices are you going to make? And how are you going to choose to think? What thoughts, what belief, what are you going to accept and embody spiritual truths, or are you going to live out these human distortions? I'm not going to call them illusions or lies because they're not, they're distortions. Those are the choices. And basically what that comes down to, do you choose love or do you choose fear? And the cool thing is, I was given this beautiful, amazing experience to be in soul consciousness. Like I got to know, experience myself at the soul level. I got to be me for a little bit. I got to swim in it and blend with it and merge with it and become one with it. And it changed everything for me. And I'm convinced that that moment was the most important moment of my life because this is what I'm here to do. I'm here to embody that, to embody my soul consciousness, my soul. And that means letting go of a lot of human beliefs, including attachments to things and the belief of separation. That's the big one. That's what makes us. I don't think we have to believe in separation to be human. I think we can be, well, to be human. Okay. Now, oh, okay. There we go. They're like, no, 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 that's not it. To be in physical form. We can stay in physical form and still embody our divinity. Like that's what we're here to do. We're here to integrate the soul with the human self and be our soul selves in physical form. The human still gets to be here, but the human is like the child and the soul is like the parent. And when the parent comes home, the child feels safe. And when the child feels safe, it doesn't act out. And then we can be our soul selves. That's it. And that's the path that I'm on. And that's the path that I'm being guided to help others accomplish as well. This is what being divine is to me. Yes. So if that sounds like something that you're interested in, let me know. Send me an email and I will get back to you and give you some information as to what I'm doing because I haven't figured it out yet. But I am my plan is to create a container for a very small group of people, which is why having a conversation is important. Um, but for a small group of people to do this work together for not a lot of money. I know the going rate is like charging 500, 900 a month, which is a little much. The more affordable rate these days is 300 a month. for live, for a small container with me, teaching. But I'm going to make it even a little less than that. Because I want it to be affordable to people. Because this is important work. And it's important that you have access to someone who can guide you in this work without draining your bank account. It just is. Yeah. So yeah, that's what I have to say about this. And then my next video is we're gonna dig into the questions that I was given this morning. So all right, so you're gonna get two today. I didn't post yesterday's video yesterday, so a bunch of videos are gonna get released today, but that's okay. All right, bye.